One of my patients, a 72-year-old retired teacher, felt a sudden pounding at the side of her neck while reaching for a glass of water. No warning, no pain, just a heavy, rushing pressure that made her freeze in place. She told me later that it felt like her brain was trying to shout for help, but what saved her that day wasn't luck. It was a tiny pressure point on her neck that instantly calmed the surge, slowed her heart rate, and stopped what could have turned into a serious stroke warning. I'm Dr. Howard Tucker, neurologist and longevity physician for more than 7 decades, and cases like hers are the reason I'm talking to you today. Because seniors often feel strange neck pressure, sudden pulsing, or unexplained tightness long before something bigger happens. But almost no one knows what those signals mean. And sitting with me is someone who has studied stroke risk for more years than most doctors have been alive. Dr. Shigaki Hinohara, Japanese physician, longevity expert, and one of the world's oldest practicing doctors. Together, we're going to break down why a simple touch on one overlooked point on your neck can help calm the very system that keeps your brain alive. By the end of this episode, you'll understand why this point matters, how it communicates with your heart and brain, and the exact moment seniors should use it. And don't worry, we're not giving the full technique away yet, because once you hear what this point controls, you'll realize why it has to be used the right way, at the right time, for the right reason. Stay with us. This is one of the most important conversations we've ever had. Doctor, when my patient pressed that point on her neck and the pressure eased almost instantly, it reminded me how often seniors feel these warning signals long before a stroke actually happens. I've seen this pattern for decades: tightness, pulsing, sudden warmth, and most people ignore it. They think it's age or tension, but it's the body speaking, and that tiny point she pressed is directly connected to the system that stabilizes blood pressure faster than any pill.
Yes, and the tragedy is that very few seniors know this point exists, even though science has been studying it for decades. In Japan, we teach patients early that the neck isn't just structure. It is a control panel for circulation, pressure regulation, and brain protection. When pressure suddenly rises, the body sends these subtle signals, but people brush them aside until the symptoms become impossible to ignore. The point your patient touched communicates with the baroreceptors, the sensors that calm the cardiovascular system almost instantly.
That's exactly why this conversation matters, because people hear the word stroke and imagine it's something that strikes without warning. But in reality, the body whispers before it screams, and that whisper often starts in the neck. Seniors describe it as a heaviness, a rush, a strange pounding they can't quite explain. If they knew how to respond in those first few seconds, they could protect themselves before danger rises.
And the beauty is that the technique we'll share today is gentle, simple, and grounded in solid physiology. It does not replace medical care, but it helps the body settle long enough to think clearly, breathe calmly, and regain control. Many seniors first experience stroke risk through sudden spikes in blood pressure or rapid heart changes, signals the baroreceptor pathway responds to immediately when stimulated correctly. One touch at the right place can change the entire cascade.
And that's what we're going to walk them through. Not fear, not alarm, just understanding. Because when seniors know why a point on the neck can calm the system, they stop feeling helpless and start feeling prepared. So let's begin by explaining exactly what this point controls and why the body reacts so quickly when it's touched. Doctor, let's break this down clearly for everyone listening. When seniors hear "touch this point on your neck," they imagine something mystical, but this is pure physiology. This point sits right where the carotid artery widens, and inside that small area lives a cluster of pressure-sensing cells called baroreceptors. Their entire job is to monitor blood pressure every second of the day. When these sensors detect a spike, they send fast signals to the brainstem, telling it to slow things down. Heart rate eases. Vessel tension relaxes. Blood pressure drops safely. And that's why one simple touch here can feel like someone flipped a switch.
Exactly. The baroreceptors act like guardians, constantly scanning the pulse pressure in the neck. When they sense danger, whether from stress, sudden standing, emotional shock, or circulatory imbalance, they send corrective messages through the vagus nerve. It's the body's internal brake system. But as people age, these receptors can become less responsive, which is why seniors often feel pounding, tightening, or sudden waves of pressure in the neck. Gentle stimulation wakes them, reminding them to regulate the system quickly, and that is why the technique we're discussing today can be so effective.
And the speed of that response is what makes this so remarkable. Pills take time. Deep breathing takes practice. But the baroreceptor reflex responds in seconds because it bypasses conscious control. I've seen seniors who went from feeling flushed and anxious to calm and steady in under half a minute simply because they activated this point. It's the same mechanism hospitals test when they measure carotid sinus sensitivity during cardiac evaluations, but we're teaching a safe, gentle version that seniors can use at home.
And the key word is gentle. This point is powerful, but it must never be pressed hard. Light stimulation sends the signal we want. Too much pressure can do the opposite. In clinical settings, we see this reflex used during certain heart rhythm procedures, because correctly applied it can slow excessive heart rate and ease sudden pressure surges. But for seniors, we use only a soft touch, enough to activate the receptors without overwhelming them. When done correctly, the body shifts into a calmer state almost automatically.
So in simple terms, this point is a communication center between the neck, the heart, and the brain. When we stimulate it gently, we're helping the body correct the imbalance it already sensed. And later in the episode, we'll walk step by step through how seniors can use this technique safely. But before that, I want everyone to understand why this point becomes more important after 60 and why age changes how these sensors behave. Doctor, I've noticed something again and again in my older patients. The same baroreceptor point that responds instantly in younger adults becomes slower, almost sluggish, after 60. Seniors tell me the pulsing feels louder, the pressure lasts longer, and the body doesn't calm down as quickly as it used to. And this isn't just aging, it's physiology. These receptors lose sensitivity over time, just like eyesight and hearing. But unlike those, declining baroreceptors directly affect brain safety because they're responsible for controlling the rapid swings in blood pressure that often precede stroke events.
Yes, and research over the decades confirms this. The vessels in the neck stiffen with age, and when that happens, the baroreceptors sitting inside those vessel walls cannot stretch and sense pressure the way they once did. It's similar to a worn-out spring, less bounce, less feedback. That delayed response is why seniors often feel that sudden neck pounding when they stand, bend, or even turn their head too quickly. The body is trying to regulate pressure, but the timing is off, and that creates the signals people describe as weird pressure, surges, or a wave in the neck.
And this is exactly why stroke risk rises sharply after 60. When the baroreceptors are slow, the body struggles to correct those sudden spikes. I've had patients who said they felt normal 1 minute and overheated in the next, or they'd feel a pulse slam against their neck after climbing stairs. That's the baro reflex lagging behind the demand. It's also why seniors experience more dizziness, blood pressure swings, and sudden rushes of heat when stressed. Their control center is working, but it's working late.
And that delay creates vulnerability because the brain is extremely sensitive to pressure fluctuations. Even a brief surge can strain the delicate vessels inside the head. That's why awakening this point gently can be so powerful for older adults. When you activate the baroreceptors manually, you give them a reminder signal, helping them function with more accuracy. Seniors benefit from this far more than younger adults because their natural reflex is weaker and the external cue fills in the missing speed.
And what I love most is that this doesn't require medication, equipment, or complicated routines. Just a simple technique that helps seniors regain some of the reflex their body has gradually lost. It gives them a sense of control again. And in the next section, we're going to explain exactly when seniors should use this technique and the early warning signals that tell you the body needs help before things escalate. Doctor, This is the part seniors really need to hear, because the body doesn't stay silent before a stroke risk rises. It gives clues, clear ones, if you know what to look for. My patients often describe the same pattern: a sudden tightness along the side of the neck, a pounding that feels too strong, a rush of heat up toward the face, or a strange pressure right under the jawline. These moments don't last long, but the message is unmistakable. The baroreceptors are struggling to control a sudden change, and that's precisely when this gentle technique can help the body regain balance before the surge grows stronger.
Yes, and timing is everything. Seniors should use this technique immediately when they feel that sudden pulse increase, the warm wave creeping up the neck, or that brief sensation of dizziness when they stand or turn. These are early signs of baroreflex overload, not random aging. In Japan, we teach older adults to respond the moment these signals appear, not minutes later. Because the sooner you stimulate the baroreceptor point, the faster the nervous system reacts, calming the heart and easing the pressure that can put fragile brain vessels at risk.
And it's important to clarify, this isn't a daily routine you perform without reason. This is a tool for moments when the body's internal pressure regulator is struggling to catch up. Seniors often tell me they feel off for a few seconds. Their face flushes, their heartbeat feels louder, or their vision sharpens strangely for a blink. Those are ideal moments to use the technique, and the earlier they act, the gentler the response needed to settle the system.
Exactly. And there's another sign many overlook: the sensation of the neck pushing outward, as if the pulse has suddenly grown heavier. This happens when the blood vessel walls feel a rapid swell, and the receptors cannot interpret the pressure quickly enough. A light touch during this moment helps restore accuracy. Think of it as assisting a system that's momentarily overwhelmed. No force, no pressing deeply, just a signal, delivered softly, that tells the cardiovascular system to stabilize.
What I want people to understand is this: seniors don't have to wait for fear to set in. You don't have to sit there wondering if the pressure will get worse, or if the pounding means something dangerous. You can act calmly, confidently, and safely with a technique that supports the body's natural reflex. And in our next section, we'll explain exactly how to perform the method, step by step, without risking harm and without applying unnecessary pressure. Doctor, before we teach the technique, we need to emphasize something. This point is powerful, but it must never be pressed hard. Seniors often think more pressure means more effect, and that's not true here. The baroreceptors respond to gentle stretching of the vessel wall, not force. So if you're listening, remember this: the technique works because it's light. Think of it as whispering to your body, not pushing it. And if you use the right touch, the calm arrives quickly and safely.
Yes, and let's begin by showing them how to find the point. If you place your fingers on the side of your neck, just below the angle of your jaw, you will feel a soft hollow between the throat and the large neck muscle. This is the carotid sinus region where the baroreceptors live. The point is not on the windpipe and not on the big muscle. It is in that gentle valley between them. When you press lightly, you may feel your pulse. That pulse tells you you're in the right place, but again, no strong pressure. Only enough to feel movement beneath the skin.
Once you've found that valley, the technique is simple. Place 2 fingers there and begin with the softest inward touch. No more pressure than you'd use to wipe a tear. Then add a tiny upward motion toward the corner of your jaw. That upward direction is what lightly stretches the sensor cells. Hold that touch for no more than 3 to 5 seconds. And while you hold, breathe slowly. You're giving the body a cue to stabilize pressure, and the breath helps reinforce the message.
And here is the beauty of this method. The baroreceptors respond almost instantly. Many seniors feel a soft wave of calm, a slowing of the pulse, or a release of that tight neck pressure within moments. If the body was already overstimulated, they may feel warmth shifting downward or the pounding easing. But if there's no discomfort, you stop. This technique is not meant to be repeated continuously. 1 or 2 gentle touches are enough to activate the reflex pathway safely.
And I want to add one important safety detail. You should never press both sides of the neck at the same time. Always stimulate just one side, preferably the right, because the right baroreceptor tends to respond more reliably. And if someone has known carotid artery disease or plaque buildup, they should speak with their doctor before practicing this. For everyone else, this is gentle, safe, and designed to help the body regain balance when it needs support.
Seniors should also avoid using this technique while driving, walking, or during rapid movement, because the body may relax faster than expected, and that can momentarily change how steady you feel. Use it sitting down, standing still, or leaning on support. It only takes seconds, but your safety comes first. When performed correctly, it becomes a tool you can carry for the rest of your life. Simple, effective, and rooted in real science.
And now that everyone knows how to find the point, how to stimulate it, and how to use it safely, we can move into what I believe is the most important part of this episode: how seniors can use this technique to stay ahead of stroke risk and protect their brain long term. Because this method is powerful, but it's part of a larger picture, and that's where we're headed next. Doctor, what most seniors don't realize is that this isn't just a quick fix for a sudden pressure surge. When used correctly, this technique actually strengthens the body's natural pressure regulation over time. I've seen patients who used it during stressful moments and noticed that after a few weeks, the pounding episodes became less frequent. Their baroreceptor reflex improved because the senses were being reminded how to respond. It's like giving the cardiovascular system small training sessions, gentle, safe, and powerful.
Yes, and that improvement is real. The body adapts to the signals you give it. When seniors stimulate the baroreceptor point during early warning signs, they reinforce the neural pathway that controls blood pressure, stability. Over time, the receptors learn to react faster on their own. This means fewer sudden spikes, less dizziness, and more stable circulation throughout the day. In Japan, we see seniors who practice gentle baroreceptor activation experience steadier mornings, calmer transitions when standing, and fewer episodes of facial flushing or neck pressure. It's not magic, it's physiology being retrained.
And that retraining matters because after 60, the brain becomes extremely sensitive to even short bursts of pressure. Small surges that younger adults recover from easily can strain fragile blood vessels in older adults. When the baroreceptors respond slowly, the brain is left unprotected during those few critical seconds. But when the reflex becomes sharper through repeated gentle stimulation, the heart rate stays steadier, the vessels remain calmer, and the brain receives more consistent blood flow. That long-term stability adds up. Fewer risks, fewer scares, more confidence.
Seniors often tell me they feel clearer after practicing this technique. That's because reducing sudden fluctuations in pressure helps protect the small arteries in the brain responsible for clarity, balance, and memory. Many strokes, especially silent ones, come from moments when pressure surged unexpectedly. When we stabilize the system repeatedly, even during mild stress, we lower the chance of those damaging spikes. This technique doesn't cure vascular aging, but it helps the brain live with it more safely.
And something else I need to emphasize. Seniors regain a sense of control. They stop fearing every strange sensation in their neck. They stop thinking every pounding moment means danger. Instead, they learn to read the signs and respond calmly. That psychological confidence reduces anxiety, which further stabilizes blood pressure. A beautiful loop where the body helps the mind and the mind helps the body. And in our final section, we'll show seniors how to integrate this into daily life and what small habits enhance the effect even more. Doctor, what strikes me most about everything we discussed today is how something so small, so gentle, can shift the entire landscape of a senior's brain safety. One tiny point on the neck that most people never think about, yet it holds the power to calm the heart, steady the vessels, and quiet the signals that push the brain toward danger. And what's fascinating is this. If a single touch can stabilize a pressure surge, then imagine what happens when seniors learn the next technique that works alongside this one. The technique that actually trains the vessels themselves to resist those sudden spikes before they even begin.
Exactly. Today we focused on the baroreceptors, the sensors that react in the moment. But there is another system, deeper and even more quietly overlooked, that decides how stiff or flexible the brain's blood vessels remain as we age. A system that can either protect the mind or expose it. When seniors learn how to influence that system, they don't just respond to danger, they get ahead of it. And there is a daily habit, often done without thinking, that weakens this protective system more than anything else, a habit we must address next.
Because touching this point may calm the storm in the moment. But what if we could prevent the storm altogether? What if the very thing seniors blame on aging is actually one reversible behavior affecting their brain pressure every single day? That's where we're headed next. And once seniors hear what that behavior is, I promise they'll never look at their daily routine the same way again.